Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, Judith.
And Hag Pesach Sameach. Happy Passover. We're in this is let me get it right, seventh evening of Passover, the evening and the morning. Tomorrow day will be the seventh day, and then at sundown on Shabbat, we will have the eighth day of Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, and thus have another mini Seder. So this is a special time, and as it happens this year, the last day of Pesach coincides with Easter Sunday. We're thankful to the Lord for letting us enjoy another Shabbat. And the scriptures are very short for this Shabbat. And so we'll read those and let John comment on those. But we're thankful that the Lord allowed us to again meet to celebrate the creation of the universe inside of this most important festival, I believe. It's probably the most important festival because this is the time that Messiah was crucified and rose from the dead during Passover, during this Passover celebration. So it's a most significant feast in what Jesus' mission here was on earth. So we're thankful that we're celebrating the Shabbat once again. And the Shabbat, to remind our listeners, was God set it apart from creation because He created everything in 6 days, and on the seventh He ceased from creation. As a reminder, when Egypt came out of Egypt, or Israel came out of Egypt, and God gave them manna, they collected a certain amount of manna each day. If they held the amount over for the next day, it spoiled. But on the sixth day, they were commanded to collect twice as much, so that they would not have to go out on the Shabbat. And John is fond of saying,
the Sabbath day is on God.
God provides, and God has provided gloriously for this feast of the Shabbat and for the feast of the Passover. So the scriptures for this for tonight are Numbers 9, 1 through 14, and Numbers 28, 19 to 25. And tomorrow the scriptures are Exodus 13, 17 through 15, 26, and Numbers 28, 19 through 25. And we'll let John read this scripture and we'll go on.
Psalm 119, verses 113. Summit.
Is it Summit?
Summit. I hate vain thoughts, but thou, Lord, do I love. Thou art my hiding place and my shelter. I hope in thy word. Depart from me, you evildoers, for I will keep the commandments of my God. Uphold me according to thy word, that I might live, and let me not be ashamed of my hope. Hold thou me up, and I shall be safe, and I will have respect unto the statutes continuously, thy statutes continuously. Thou have trodden down all them that err from thy statutes, from their deceit, for their deceit is falsehood. Thou puttest away all the wicked of the earth like dross. Therefore I love thy testimonies. My flesh trembles for fear of thee, and I am afraid of thy judgment. This is the word of the Lord. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come, and may your will be done. We give thanks to you, Lord, for you have brought us to another Shabbat. During this Shabbat, Lord, you delivered your people out of bondage, out of Egypt, and brought them to Mount Sinai, where they were born again, receiving the Spirit of God and the commandments of God, and the commandment of God to rest on this day, the Sabbath day, that they may acknowledge the God with power and might, deliver them from sin and bondage, to bring them into a land of promise, and to give thanks, our brethren the Jews, worship and sing and pray and meditate on your word, to give honor and glory to the God who has kept his promise, who is faithful. And we celebrate along with our brethren the Jews. For Christ has come, and he has died and delivered us from the house of bondage through his perfect offering, that we may follow him and be free to serve him and acknowledge him as our Creator and God. And we sing and pray and give thanks with glad hearts, and we await his return again, Lord, when we will be united forever and ever. And we give thanks to him who has come for us, and we give thanks for the Spirit that remains with us. In the name of the Christ we pray. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi ltimes. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagapim. Blessed art you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us from the fruit of the vine. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, Judas.
And I'll read for you first Numbers 9, 1 through 14. The Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai on the first new moon of the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, saying, Let the Israelite people offer the Passover sacrifice at its set time. You shall offer it on the 14th day of the month at twilight, or at its set time. You shall offer it in accordance with all its rules and rites. Moses instructed the Israelites to offer the Passover sacrifice, and they offered the Passover sacrifice on the first month, on the 14th day of the month at twilight, in the wilderness of Sinai, just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so the Israelites did. But there were some men who were unclean by reason of a corpse, and could not offer the Passover sacrifice on the day, appearing that same day before Moses and Aaron. Those men said to them, Unclean though we are by the reason of the corpse, why must we be disbarred from presenting the Lord's offering at its set time with the rest of the Israelites? Moses said to them, Stand by and let me hear what instructions the Lord gives about you. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people, saying, When any of you or of your posterity who are defiled by a corpse, or are on a long journey, would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, they shall offer it in the second month, on the 14th day of the month, at twilight. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall not leave any of it over until morning. They shall not break a bone of it. They shall offer it in the strict accord with the law of the Passover sacrifice. But if a man who is clean and not on a journey refrains from offering the Passover sacrifice, that person shall be cut off from his kin, for he did not present the Lord's offering at its set time. That man shall bear the guilt. When a stranger who resides with you would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, he must offer it in accordance with the rules and rites of the Passover sacrifice. There shall be one law for you, whether stranger or citizen of the country.
I think you say frequently that we have to do things in a prescribed way, and this was saying it should be done in accordance with a certain rule and regulation. One teacher presents it this way, saying this is the Torah is very stringent, well, strict, and it has certain rules and guidelines it wants for us to follow. And one use the example of it's almost like a recipe. When you make a cake, if you mess with the recipe, if you don't put in what the recipe says, or the same ingredients, or the right temperature, or the right bowls and the right mixing, if you tamper with the recipe, it's not going to come out right. So when God says do it accordingly, you're doing it according to the recipe. And the commandments are the same thing as following a recipe. And that's how we should look at it, not as something burdensome. But if a friend of yours gave you a recipe that cooked an apple pie, and you take the recipe and you switch for your own ingredients, and you loved your friend's apple pie, but couldn't figure out why yours didn't come out right, well, you tamper with the recipe. Here God's saying don't tamper with the recipe. Now, there was a strict guideline here at the beginning where the men were obeying Moses' command, which was God's command, by removing a corpse. And God's command was, if you touch a corpse, you can't celebrate the Passover. Because Passover deals with rebirth. There's nothing about death involved here. This is rebirth and renewal. But they couldn't participate because they touched a corpse, and they wanted to participate. They wanted to be part of the community, and they didn't want to wait till next year for the next Passover. Because they may say, well, hey, I may not be here for the next Passover, or I may have the same problem next year. So how do I participate now? And Moses didn't know. He went to God, and God gave him an exemption. They would wait 30 days, and then they could participate. They have to eat it all in one night, meaning they don't eat leftovers, which means rich people don't eat leftovers. They don't live on a budget. We live on a budget, so they're still eating royalty. They're not eating like poor people. They're still eating it like royalty, people who are free, people who have control over their time. They can't break a bone, meaning it's not something that is supposed to swell up and feed a lot of people. It's supposed to shrink and only feed fewer people, which means if you need more meat to feed more people, you have to put more lambs on the fire. So this isn't a time of scrimping. This is a time of saying you are just as liberated now as you were a month ago. But the idea here is it's still a royal meeting, and it's still a royal celebration of God and their deliverance out of Egypt. It's not just eating to those folks. Oh, it's not. Oh, they're just eating dinner and that's it. No, it's a full participation in the celebration of coming out of Egypt. It wasn't just an event. Yeah, it wasn't just an event. I forget how the person mentioned it. He asked how the context. The guy asked, or if he was a religious person, and he says no. But the guy, he read Torah, went to school and studied, and he said, "You're not a religious person?" He said, "No. You don't have certain beliefs. Believe certain things about the Bible and this, that." And I don't know if he said no or not, but I'm tempted to say he said no. And how did he explain it? He said, "I'm not religious. This is the way I live. This is not a religion. This is a lifestyle. It's not a set of belief. It's the way I live." And to me, that struck me. Yes, we have certain beliefs, but do we live what we believe? And this is the idea here, that you are encouraged. Torah encourages you to live a life of what you believe. And these folks, they're getting the information firsthand, direct from Moses. They're not getting it. It's not being handed down or by various people. They're getting it firsthand. So I think I'm going to stop there with the explanation.
Okay. I like your explanation about. I think I'm going to use that about the Torah being like a recipe.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And in recipes, you have to follow the recipe,
Yeah.
or you don't get what you say with the original baker got when they made their cake. I'll use that as an example.
Mm-hmm.
The original baker puts the picture of the cake that it got following the recipe, and the baker gives you the recipe plus the temperature of the oven,
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Uh-huh.
and things that may make the cake go wrong. Maybe if you're at a higher altitude, you need to add less flour, or so on and so forth. And so, I mean, a great example for this, why we should be following the Torah. If we desire to get what the Lord has for us, then we have to follow his recipe. He is the master baker. He knows what it should look like, what his creation should look like.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so it behooves us to follow the recipe, which is the Torah. Very good example.
Mm-hmm.
Very good example. Now, did you come up with that by yourself?
No, a teacher got that one.
And I heard one teacher, I remember Miles Monroe, he talked about you go to the manufacturer. If you want to know how something runs, you go to the manufacturer. The manufacturer gives you a
manual or something?
yes, a manual, because I remember when new cars came out, it had a manual. You didn't have to go online. It had a printed manual for you that you were to, when new cars, you not drive it over 55 miles an hour, and whatever, but it told you exactly how this vehicle is supposed to operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, we didn't make ourselves, it's he who made us, not we ourselves. So he is the manufacturer. So we should be going to his manual daily to find out how we should be operating in this this world we call time and space. So very good example, because if you don't, if you make up rules of your own, you're not the manufacturer. You don't know. Well, you do know, because God is saying if you don't follow my rules, things are not going to go well. And so you can be sure if you're making up your own rules and they're not in line with God's, things are not going to go well. Very good example. Very good example. I like that. All right, and then the next scripture is from Numbers 28, 19 through 25. 28. Let me make sure I get that. 19 through 25. You shall present an offering of fire, a burnt offering to the Lord. 28. What was that? That was right. Okay. 19 through 25. Okay. You shall present an offering by fire, a burnt offering to the Lord, 2 bulls of the herd, 1 ram, and 7 yearling lambs. See that they are without blemish. The meal offering with them shall be of choice flour, with oil mixed in, prepared 3/10 of a measure for a bull, 2/10 for a ram, and for each of the 7 lambs prepare 1/10 of a measure. And there shall be 1 goat for a sin offering, to make expiation in your behalf. You shall present these in addition to the morning portion of the regular burnt offering. You shall offer the like daily for 7 days as food, as an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord. They shall be offered with their libations in addition to the regular burnt offering. And the 7 days shall be sacred occasion for you, and you shall not work at your occupation. Let me make sure. 14th day. I probably should have started at 16. It said, in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, there shall be a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, and that would have helped. And on the 15th day of the month, a festival, unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. And I just want to make this comment before John makes his comment. We take that admonition seriously, and the Jewish people around the world take it very seriously. Now, we may not be privy to why God says you need to eat leavened bread for 7 days, but if the manufacturer, who knows the creation, says, or if the baker who knows the cake says, eat unleavened bread for 7 days, then we need to do it. We don't need to know why, but we need to do it. And I think probably in our minds, since we think sometimes we know better than God, if we don't see a need for it, or we don't know the exact reason, we tend not to do things. And then I think we miss out on what our Creator is trying to show us. So we have tried, a matter of fact, we have done that. I've had one case of matzah, but John said, well, shouldn't we get more? We don't know, if we're going to have enough. So I got another case so that we wouldn't run out. If we had more, that's fine. But at least we wouldn't run out. And we've faithfully been doing as God commanded, because we are a member of the Commonwealth of Israel. And so therefore, and as we read just prior, there's one law for the stranger and one law for Israel. There are not two laws. He said one, and we read that from Numbers. Numbers. I just read it. Numbers 9 about the one law. One law from God, from stranger, and for the nation of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So it behooves us to follow what God says. As we go into the future, as we go into Revelation time, which we're deep into it, the only thing that's going to save us, and I mean save us in the sense that we follow what God says, and it's going to be tough, but following God's laws gives us the assurance that we are on the right path.
Mm-hmm. Now, the idea of the burnt offerings and even the sin offerings, I guess they are that. Now, some they use the word sacrifice in here, but a sacrifice is something that you give up, and you get nothing in exchange for it. But a better word to choose would be offering, because with the offerings, the purpose here, or the idea is to draw closer to God, and this is through the burnt offering, which is completely consumed on the altar. It's not shared with the priest or the person giving it. But another example that teacher gives was the guy goes to wants to be a doctor, and he spent lots of hours in studying and going to school and lots of years in school, and he asked the question, what did he sacrifice? What did he give up?
Mm-hmm.
What, a party lifestyle? That's something worth sacrifice? He really gave up nothing.
Mm-hmm.
If he became a good doctor, he didn't sacrifice anything. He benefited from offering himself to study and concentration. When we think of sacrifice, we may have that word wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to sacrifice something, you're hungry, you got yourself a quarter pounder,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a poor guy, you see him sitting on the street, and he's hungry. To sacrifice means you would give him your burger.
Mm-hmm.
Then you sacrifice something, you gave up something. But, you could have cut it in half, but did you really maybe sacrifice half a burger? That's a sacrifice. But to give him, $1 or $2 to buy a burger, what did you give up? Probably nothing. If you give up the party lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
you're not giving up much. Living an immoral life as opposed to a structured life with Torah.
So what you're
You're
saying
not giving up anything.
is that Yeshua gave up a lot
Well, yeah, he made the sacrifice.
for his death.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
gave up his
Right.
priestly,
Right.
not dominion, his station
Yeah.
as God.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
He
Before
gave it up,
Uh-huh.
and with that came what? The sin of the
Yeah.
whole world.
Uh-huh.
One guy, he did a little short, and he was talking about, he was trying to make a point. He said that, we talked about You know, he died, got on the cross and died. But it said he died, he suffered. Because the Romans had just instituted this type of crucifixion. Had done, I say just instituted it. I mean, I guess somebody just thought of how can we torture people, and the way he was tortured with his skin being flailed, having to carry his own cross, just a horrendous death. And the way that they say he was on the cross, and the way they nailed you up there, that you suffocated, because he couldn't lift up to relieve the fluid that was collecting in his lungs and heart, and so he suffocated, and so he suffered. Yes, he gave up. The process that he had to go through in order to get to the end was horrendous for mankind. And by taking on the sins of the world.
But that's all I have for that part.
Well, I think your example, that first part about the recipe, excellent. So my admonition to the people who will listen to our broadcast is, if you want to live here on planet Earth as our Creator intended us to, then we need to go to the recipe, which is the Torah, to find out what we need to do. As I give one example. For this week, according to the Torah, we're supposed to eat unleavened bread. Unleavened bread for 7 days. Don't know why, other than the baker, the master baker, says we are to do it. And that's enough. That should be enough. That should be enough. And if we never find out exactly why, what sacrifice we make by doing it until we get home, then so be it. But at least we know we're following the recipe. Are you following the recipe? My admonition to our listeners, are you following the recipe? That's my question to you. Are you following the recipe? The recipe that the God of Israel gave he handed it down through the nation of Israel. And it's very specific. You talked about that. It's not vague. Very specific on what God. Matter of fact, the first thing that he was very specific about, on 6 days you do work, but on the 7th day you cease from work. He is very specific about what kind of work, and so you shouldn't have any be just wondering, well, what does he mean by that? Creation is his work, and also you have, by doing this, you have enough food so that you don't have to go out and work to have food, because again, you're following the recipe. Are you following God's recipe? Are you following his recipe? That's my question. Anything else?
No.
All right. All right. Now, what shall we sing? Oh, you can. I let you choose.
Oh no. I don't think we finished the charge.
Okay.
I think we're at verse 3.
Okay, let's do that. You got it?
Yeah.
Me
with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and oh, thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give.
We thank the Lord that he has enabled us to enjoy this Passover week and enjoy what He has commanded us to do. And may He allow us to finish strong by eating unleavened bread and studying the recipe book, the Torah. And so, we have 2 more days. 2 days, yeah, if you include, yeah. So Saturday day and Sunday day, 2 more days to enjoy the Passover weekend. The Passover week, the Passover also is God's people crying out to the Lord to return them to the land. That's what it's all about. Just as He did when they were in Egypt, now they are dispersed through all of the countries, the 4 corners of the earth. So the Passover is a prayer or plea for the great I Am to return them to the land of Israel. So we say
Shabbat Shalom, Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov and a happy Passover.
Happy Passover.
The whole world is waiting.
Sing the song of Shabbat.
Whole world is waiting.
Sing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. Whole world is waiting. Sing the song of Shabbat. I'm also waiting, waiting to sing the song. I'm also waiting, sing the song of Shabbat. Oh, world is waiting, sing the song of Shabbat. Oh, world is waiting, sing the song of Shabbat.